This week on Matinee Heroes. Jojo was a lonely German boy who discovers that his single mother is hiding a Jewish girl in their attic. Aided only by his imaginary friend, Adolf Hitler, Jojo must confront his blind nationalism as World War II continues to rage on. Craig, Allen, and guest Carrie Gordon talk about propaganda, deprogramming loved ones, MSR Cast live stream, and the movie Jojo Rabbit on this week's Matinee Heroes. Welcome to Matinee Heroes. I'm your host, Craig Price, along with my co-host, Alan Cerny from Vital Thrills. Alan, how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Well, I think I'm doing better than you. I know you've been working a lot of these Saturdays at the court, and unfortunately, you're not a doctor, you're not birthing babies. There's all kinds of rough stuff going on, because if it's in court, it's usually someone's worst day of their life.
Yeah, it's not fun. I thought I was going to get off earlier than I did today, so yeah.
But we appreciate you working. You're an essential worker, so we appreciate you doing that. But we have a guest as we continue and we wrap up Nazis Month with one of the most recent movies about, how much we hate Nazis, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we've got Carrie Gordon from Metal Geeks, MSR Cast. How are you doing, Carrie?
I'm good, sir. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is the perfect month for me. Absolutely Nazis.
Yeah, Nazis
Absolutely.
all the time. Yeah. That's what the whole month's about, is just loudly and proudly saying Nazis. They're fuckers.
That's
We
right.
hate them all.
I'm loud and proud on that.
Yeah, and like I said when we first started off this month, Alan and I have been loud and proud since the beginning of the podcast and before, but obviously we've never shied away from telling Nazis to fuck off in public. We even sell shirts that tell people to fuck Nazis.
There's a great song called Nazi Punks Fuck Off, so.
Yep. Actually, that just gives me an idea. There may be a movie we may have. If we, there's not a ton of Nazi movies, but there are a few out there, and I think we should probably cover Green Room at one point.
Oh, yeah, because this year was the first time we ever did white supremacist Nazis when we did American History X. Normally, we just focus on good old German Nazis from the 40s, but this year we expanded, and because it's becoming an issue, and we did American History X with Valerie Cameron like last week. Yeah, the Green Room was definitely on my mind because it's got Patrick Stewart playing a Nazi.
Yeah. So, it doesn't really matter. You get German Nazis, you can get white nationalist Nazis. It's all the same shit. I mean, sometimes it's diarrhea and sometimes it's a long string of poop. It's the same thing.
Wow. Wow.
Such imagery on the show.
That analogy. Oh, Alan, you have been at work all day.
Analogy, yes.
Oh, God. Is this where I can leave now?
Yeah, this is, or as Alan would say, analogy.
Analogy. Analoogie is what it is. So anyway, I'm done. I'm done. Okay.
Good Lord. But as we talk about Nazis, are there World War II movies that you like where they kill a lot of Nazis? Is there something that you really like when it comes to World War II movies?
Yeah, I mean, the original, my favorite growing up, the Indiana Jones movies, that was his main bread and butter, was killing Nazis.
Yeah, 50% of the time he was out there kicking ass and taking Nazi names.
That's right.
We kicked off
That or
this month.
Mola Ram.
Yeah, well, that's why I said 50% of the time. Every other movie. So I'm hoping this new movie is about him going to Argentina as an 80-year-old archaeologist and finding old Nazis to punch up. That would be fun. Walk into some Brazilian, Argentinian senior citizen center and just like punching old people.
I'm down.
Yeah. Are you Air
like
Schimmel? Yes. Pop, pop, pop.
It's sort of like the plot of that Amazon Prime show was Al Pacino.
Yeah. The Hunters, I believe it was called.
I hadn't seen that. It's like, I heard it was Al Pacino in hoo-ah mode.
It is Al Pacino in hoo-ah mode. It's.
I mean, do you not want that? I mean, I definitely want that.
I like hoo-ah mode from Al Pacino, but most of the time I want to see him mix it up a little differently. I'm down.
If you're looking for Al Pacino to put together a group of guys and girls to hunt Nazis, this is the show for you.
Okay, well, I definitely should check it out. There's much.
That's my elevator pitch.
There's so much data out there. It's hard to take it all in. And that's one I wanted to watch, and it kind of fell off the radar, so maybe I should get back to that.
And it's Dylan Baker in full Nazi mode. So if you like Dylan Baker, which
that's true.
He's one of those great character actors that people don't know his name, but when they see him, they go, "Oh yeah, that guy." Mm-hmm. He's like one of the head Nazis, and awful guy in that television show. Just awful.
He was great in it though, really great.
Yeah, he's fantastic, but the guy is just like willing to walk away from his family at any moment.
Yep.
Oh, he's just a shit. Because why? He's a fucking Nazi, and they're assholes, and they're heartless pieces of shit.
That whole opening scene of that whole entire series, man, it was just wow.
Oh, by the pool?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we don't want to spoil it for Alan.
No spoilers, but yeah.
No spoilers.
So
I have to watch it eventually. It's a Pacino, and it's like pizza. Even when he's bad, he's still pretty good.
That's right. Cold Pacino is still good Pacino.
I don't like deep dish Pacino. I'll tell you that. It's a little too doughy. It's just all dough, not a lot of flavor to it. So I'd rather have...
That's what happens when you get old. I'm sorry.
We've got the Metal Geeks on the MSR cast. What have you gotten up to there lately? I know you've moved into streaming.
Yeah, we've started doing some live streams. We started back at the end of 2020. I've been working on it for other projects, and I finally decided to start working it into my podcast. And we did our 2020 Rewind, doing a live stream, which was a lot of fun. And then taking it to the next level, we decided, hey, well, let's start doing like a monthly one. The first two that we've done have been, in my world, celebrity metal musicians. So the first one we had Matt Harvey from a band called Exhumed. Been a good friend of him for many years. He's a super huge geek. He wrote a Marvel versus DC script years ago and let us publish it on our website.
Cool.
Very cool. We just recently had this band Allegiant. The main guy is a guy named Riley McShane. Big time metal band, progressive like death metal type stuff. They do a lot of Rush covers for some reason. He also started his own video game production company during the pandemic. So we're going to we talked to him about that, and then video games. He's a big video game nerd. So we're trying to find people that are in the metal scene that are also sort of geeky. So it all sort of works together.
Well, it sounds like you guys got a lot of stuff going on over there. Of course, no Nazi metal at all.
No, of course not. No way.
I don't like the hesitation, but yes, I appreciate the fact that because there's so we talked about this last time you were on. We were talking Saving Mr. Banks. There's so many different types of metal that I'm sure there's some kind of.
And unfortunately, there is a subgenre of that. Unfortunately.
And have you heard any of those songs, or is it just something you know of? Because I want to know, what do they talk about? Is it do they just scream Adolf like the whole time with a lot of thrashing metal?
I can't really honestly answer because I've never really dived into it. I never really wanted to.
No problem.
I just know it exists. There's a lot of black metal bands that are considered in that genre. There's a lot of bands that talk about it. It's in their lyrics and their imagery, but it's not really them. Like Slayer, they're not really devil worshippers. Like Tom Araya is like a huge Christian. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these bands is just like, we found a niche imagery thing and we're going to go for that. But there are some bands that really believe in it. Like there were Christian metal bands too, Mm-hmm.
I find it ironic that the black metal bands are white nationalists. You think it'd be white metal and it's black metal.
They might call it white metal. I don't know.
All right. Once again, it is the MSR cast and it is Metal Geeks, all things. But
yes, sir.
We are going to move on to finish up Nazis Month with the latest installment. And probably one of the more feel-good, and it's supposed to be. This is not one of these it's not Schindler's List. It's not The Green Room. It's supposed to be a fun, enjoyable movie that got an underlying tone to make sure people know how awful Nazis are without having you hit you over the head, and that is Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. You hate Nazis. We hate Nazis. Help celebrate Nazis Month, where we loudly and proudly tell whatever Nazi we see to go themselves. You can do the same with your Nazi shirt at the Matinee Heroes store. This t-shirt is everything you've dreamed of and more. It feels soft and lightweight with the right amount of stretch. It's comfortable and flattering for both men and women. Perfect for those anti-fascist marches or just to irritate your Nazi neighbors when you mow the lawn. Head over to matineeheroes.com/store, and while you're there, pick up one of our exclusive Manatee Hero Manatee mascot shirts where there are manatee depictions of Wonder Woman, Batman and Joker, Indiana Jones, Jaws, and more. All made for the podcast by the great artist Joel Micah Harris. So go to matineeheroes.com/store and get ready to say Nazis. This one I like because it's really interesting how he added Adolf Hitler to the script. It's not in the book at all.
No, in the book, it's more serious. It's not very comedic. Taika Waititi just read it, and he just went off to where he went off to. I love this movie. It is a fun movie until it isn't. I think we can all pretty much time exactly when the movie stops being fun.
Yeah.
Is when he ties his mom's shoe. Yeah,
I was about to say that.
Yeah, and at that point, this is a serious thing. We're dealing with serious issues, and I mean, he kind of sucker punches us a little bit, but it's a sucker punch that lands. It's one of those, wow. Before that, well, this is kind of cute. This kid's idea of what a Jewish person is ridiculous, and you can laugh at it until you realize that, man, he's been programmed from day one. And there are people around today who have been programmed like that. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to poke at it and look at it in a comedic sense. But it is a serious movie when it gets down to the center and the base of it, which is Nazism and far-right ideals and attitudes. They start young. They start under a pretense of they're the enemy, we're the good guys. Let's show you how good we are. And then you sneak in how bad they are, and you can't make heads or tails of it, because they've just worn it down in your head. I love Taika Waititi, and I love that this is an interesting movie to follow up from Thor Ragnarok. You could feel it's a very much a passion project, but he is quite a director. I think Blazing Saddles or, the Mel Brooks catalog really is a huge inspiration for him. And you can see it in this movie. Like I said, the first half of this movie is very funny and very sweet. It really wants us to try to understand how this little boy became the person he was and how his mom is trying to subtly navigate him out of it. It's hard for her because she has to be subtle about it because she's a hobbit in the middle of Mordor. And
hey, ScarJo's better looking than that. She's not just some little hairy-footed hobbit in the middle of nowhere. That seems like an insult.
You know what I mean. She's like in the middle of it. You can't be overt. You just have to subtly sneak in this idea of rebellion. And the way she does it, she doesn't talk bad about her husband in front of him, but she lets him know that he wasn't always the best guy. Sometimes these ideals that they are preaching at you, you're neck deep in them. How do you pull somebody who's neck deep out of the quicksand? Well, you do it very slowly.
Speaking about that portion of it, do you think if the kid realized what his mom was actually doing, that he was so brainwashed into the whole Nazism that he would have told on her?
I absolutely think that. In fact, it's a really interesting dichotomy. She loves her son to death, but he is so in deep with this ideology that he is a danger to her.
Well, that's why she's hiding the girl. She says that we can't let him know because if he finds out, he will turn us in. So she kind of knows that he'll turn, because he's such a zealot, but I don't think she understands what kind of zealot he is. That's why I think a lot of people who criticize this movie for it not being hard enough or glossing over the Holocaust didn't quite get what the movie was trying to show you. It was trying to show you how propaganda of the Nazis and in propaganda in general can sway kids very easily. It wasn't trying to show you about the horrors that they were doing. We know all about that. We want people to know how easy it is and how early it starts that this brainwashing happens.
The Nazi youth, as they call them, they were trying to, this was at the end of the war. It was about to be over for them, and they were still trying to, get the next wave of kids ready to die for the country.
Yeah, and it's really interesting the way, like Sam Rockwell's character, the way that JoJo goes to him and talks about how evil the Jews are and how he's so passionate for this. The way that Sam Rockwell says, yeah, I sure, yeah, you're right. It's all great. It's all great. He doesn't have any passion for it anymore.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if he actually really believes it anymore.
Yeah, I don't think he's one of those.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he's not a Nazi. He is a German soldier. There's a difference. So he is a guy who believes in Germany. It's kind of like Valkyrie, where we had someone who was a diehard German soldier who started to see the atrocities that not only the German army was doing, but what Hitler was trying to tell them to do. And that's why he's decided, look, we got to kill Hitler. Sam Rockwell's character is very similar, where he is a guy who fought in World War I, because you can see all those medals on his chest that he has from World War I, and he was a valiant soldier. From what I understand, some of the things were bravery in combat. There was one medal that he got that Sam Rockwell's character has where it's him single-handedly destroying a tank. I mean, he's got all these massive bravery medals from World War I, And I think he kind of got swept up into World War II, and he sees like, I don't give a shit. Because also they say that he's gay in this movie, and him and Alfie, they're lovers. Because there's one scene where the first time Rosie shows up, Sam Rockwell's feeding strudel to Alfie. It's like, oh, hello. I think he's not a real Nazi. I think he's kind of fed up, and he dissuades.
At least he got to keep his junk in this one.
Yeah, right. The thing about this film, the reason there's a lot of the controversy is that this is a movie that dares to examine people on a personal basis instead of a blanket basis. This is a movie about nuance. It's a movie that, yes, they're Nazis. And it's not saying, well, just because they're Nazis doesn't mean they're evil. They are misguided. This is a movie that goes against the ideals of, frankly, a lot of the left right now, where it's a blanket covering. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You're a terrible person. And I'm not trying to justify Nazism or Nazis in any way, but there's a complication involved. Sure, if you're a Nazi now, you want to be a Nazi. But if you're a Nazi in the middle of Berlin, Germany during World War II, you kind of have to do it just to live, right?
Yeah.
It's not something as simple as, well, everybody is just as guilty as other. They're all terrible. And at the same time, some of them are just trying to navigate their lives. For somebody like Sam Rockwell, this is a job. He's probably not getting paid very well, but he's getting paid. At the same time, he sees that what's coming. He sees the war, how it's going to end. The more the Nazis enrage the rest of the world, when the rest of the world finally comes to them, they're not going to spare anyone. And he knows the writing on the wall. He knows that he's in trouble. It's going to come to an end. Just all the nuances of the characters. Some of them are even JoJo's little friend. Nazism is Sesame Street, all wrapped up with the electric company. Okay, that's the shit that they're watching in the morning, eating a big ass bowl of cereal. I mean, I'm just saying that's how it's being pumped into their brains. They're excited. They think they're part of something bigger than themselves. They've been brainwashed, so it's really, really hard to pull them out of that. The way Scarlett Johansson, who is wonderful, by the way, this is probably I know there's a movie of hers that she made, and I own it, but I haven't watched it yet, called Under the Skin, where she's amazing in that movie. She plays an alien, but this is probably my favorite performance of hers. Just the way that she deals with JoJo, because you could feel the love coming from her, and she loves him so much, she could have abandoned him. She probably could have found a way out. She probably could have gotten the little Jewish girl out and abandoned him. But she couldn't. She couldn't leave her little boy behind. Mm-hmm. And so she's trying to pull him out by inches, trying to get him to see what the horrors are. And she doesn't make it.
Even after he got majorly hurt because of it all.
He got his face messed up and all of that. I have to talk about Taika Waititi's performance as Hitler, because he's tremendously great. And I mean, I never really noticed this until the second time I watched it, but when he's jumping, he's like putting his body in the shape of the swastika. It's so weird. He's so funny in this movie.
I gotta say, I know there's people out there who do not like him, but I'm a huge fan of Taika Waititi. I love everything he's done, and he really shines. He's not afraid to take these weird, quirky chances, especially, okay, I'm going to play Hitler in this movie. You're going to do what? You're going to play Hitler in a comedy? How is that going to work? But, man, his performance is so good. And so you actually, I hate to say it like this, but you actually care for that imaginary version of Hitler,
Yeah, because he's turned into a hero into JoJo's eyes.
Well, he's also what a 10-year-old thinks of Hitler.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so it's he's Mr. Rogers wrapped up in an action-adventure hero.
Also, when he thinks that, he's always offering him cigarettes because he thinks that's what Hitler would do. Hitler didn't smoke. And then he thinks that Hitler's eating unicorn and stuff like that. And, Hitler was a vegetarian. But it's one of those things that JoJo doesn't really know anything besides what he hears on the radio about Adolf Hitler. So everything that he thinks of Adolf Hitler is what Taika's doing, which is hilarious because he's a fucking idiot. This Adolf Hitler's a 10-year-old superhero, but he's a dummy.
Yeah, and to bring it back a little to Taika Waititi a little bit, when he premiered this movie at Fantastic Fest, it was something. It was one of those crowd moments where people, especially, again, the shoelaces, when that happens in the movie and the audience, you could feel, okay, we're in serious territory now. But Taika Waititi was such a good guy. The movie started at 7 o'clock and ended around 9-ish, and he stayed around to do a Q&A. And then he hung out in the Draft House lobby until 2 o'clock.
Wow.
And people were just walking up to him, taking pictures and saying hi. and shooting the shit with him. And he's just a very giving person. I've been a Fantastic Fest and seen other filmmakers, they bring their movies and they stick around for a little bit and then they take off. But he stayed all night. I think he shut the place down. I have a real warm place for him in my heart because I thought most people don't do that. And this guy coming off of Thor Ragnarok and a big Marvel filmmaker, and plus what we do in the shadows, which is so awesome, and the TV show too. Everything that he's done, I've just adored. And the fact that he stood around for a few hours just to shoot the shit with everybody, and he really impressed me that way.
He's one of the directors I look up to and I would actually really love to meet.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. He's a really nice guy.
You can tell he's a super nice guy. Everybody talks about how the set is a great place. Like, going on the set is just exactly how you think it would be. Him and Scarlett Johansson hadn't really worked before. And for her to take this role is kind of a risk, because anytime you're doing a role where the main character is Adolf Hitler, you got to be careful, especially if you're the Black Widow. So now Sam Rockwell, he's a different story because he does all kinds of strange, weird movies. It's not that big a deal for him to be in a movie like that. And everybody else who's in here are comedians. But for Scarlett Johansson to really be the emotional anchor, the kind of the star power behind this, is a huge risk. And she is wonderful in it. She was talking about if it wasn't for Waititi, she wouldn't have done it, because he brings something that I've never been on a set with him, but he brings something to the set where people feel safe, that they trust him, that they know what he's doing. And that's mostly because I think he is also an actor. And I think actors trust actor-directors more.
More importantly, he's also Jewish.
Yes.
This is a personal film for him. And he wanted to make sure the people being part of this movie knew that he wasn't going to make fun of anything. This is obviously a satire. He knew he was walking in a minefield. Anybody who ever makes a movie like this is always walking in a minefield. Even Spielberg knew he was walking into a minefield making Schindler's List.
This kind of movie, and like you mentioned Schindler's List right now, it's very personal for me. I grew up Jewish. I had family in concentration camps, all this kind of stuff. So these type of movies, I look at them in it's sort of a different lens at times too, because it's so important and personal to me. It's important for people to know this part of the story too. Not just what happened like in Schindler's List, but what happened to every Jew, and what the young kids thought of Jews, that they had demon horns and all this kind of weird stuff, which they really did believe.
Well, I was going to bring that up, Carrie, because I know that you were Jewish, but
true. I can tell you it's not true.
I was going to say, what kind of things have people, when you were a kid, because you're a Jewish kid in Texas, so I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a Jewish kid in Brooklyn, it's not that big a deal. But a Jewish kid in Texas, what kind of weird things did the people think of Jewish people when you were growing up?
Yeah. So my devil horns aren't from being Jewish. It's from my love of metal, but that's something different. I don't really want to talk about them too much, but I did have a couple of bouts of anti-Semitism growing up. One of the reasons why I had to stop riding the bus to school was part of that reason. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't want to bum people out too much.
Well, I'm not Jewish, but I was in Vidor, Texas, and people just assumed I was Jewish.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got a Jewish look to me, which I proudly display. I am Jew-esque. I'm not Jewish. I'm Jew-esque. Jew-like.
Okay.
I'm Jewish now.
Yeah. I was there with my Hispanic girlfriend, and we had car trouble, and it was very uncomfortable 4 hours as we waited for a tow truck and things like that. You could just tell that something was not right. And I've had comedians, especially in Texas City, who, again, they thought I was Jewish, so they just called me the little Jew kid. I'm like, okay, I'm not. I'm the Catholic, but that's okay. Whatever you think, but I can only imagine what it was like. But I think people need to know that not only was it what was going on for the Jewish girl, but what it was like for the kids of Germany, because people wonder how people become Nazis, and this is how it happens.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a film about how people become Nazis, but this is also a film about how people can be pulled out of it. And the main gist of it is empathy.
And love.
And love. And you spend enough time with another person, and you get to know them marrow deep, under the skin. You understand who they are as a person. You can pull people out of it. And a lot of the complaints about this movie is that there's a whimsy to it, right? There's a positivity to this film, especially how that swings back at the end of the film, the little dance sequence and everything. It's very, very important that you show that this kid is saved, that this kid learns from his experience, because if we just understand that evil is evil and good is good, and there is no nuance between the two, eventually there's no difference between the two either, and nobody can be redeemed and nobody can be saved because they're just the enemy. That's just not the way the real world is, and I don't want it to be like that. I want to have the idea that anybody who is even steeped in that kind of evil, and to him he doesn't think of himself as evil, he thinks he's justified, but you can take that sense of inner goodness and turn it around and make him understand what it really means, right?
As the Beatles said, all you need is love.
Exactly. And it's a very sweet message, and it's a very important message, because the time that this movie came out, it was 2019. We didn't know a pandemic was coming, obviously, but we were about to start the election process. Everything that happened in Charlottesville, everything was really fresh in our minds at the time. It really felt, and it still feels some way, maybe lesser now that things have changed somewhat, but at that time, it really felt like the bad guys were winning. It really felt like the ideals of these white nationalists, the ideals of the far right, were going to take such a permanent foothold in society that those of us, who are on the left or, who don't feel the way that they do, we're going to have a difficulty for the rest of our lives trying to navigate through this shit. The idea that nothing like this is permanent. Things change. These ideals will be considered as ridiculous as they are. A lot of people, unfortunately, had to die for that to happen.
Yeah.
The understanding that things come back around, goodness is going to win as long as the other side, even though they may be steeped in evil, if they have an understanding, they have a heart, because they don't think they're the evil person. And if they can turn that around and make it so that they understand that their acts define them and how they turn into evil like that.
One of the important things to remember is never forget. I mean, this stuff did happen. If you ever want to, I would definitely take the time to visit like a Holocaust museum that's in your area if you have one. It's a life-changing moment. But let's talk about something that's not so dark.
Right,
this
right.
kid's performance.
Yes, he's wonderful.
Oh my gosh, he's amazing.
Both the kids were great.
He carried this whole movie. Yes.
I have to say, every time I saw Archie Yates, I smiled. He was such a sweetheart, too. These are great kids. I felt like these were, and we didn't recast the kids, but if I did, it would be Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I felt like...
Yeah, totally.
I felt like...
just CGI them, right?
I felt like these were the little kids' version of them. The fact that they were able to hug each other and say how nice it was and really have an emotional connection and not be afraid of it was so sweet to see, because you don't have to worry about it. They hug each other even when one's in a robot costume. It's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while.
I love that little kid. He's so sweet. But totally Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I could totally see that.
But Roman Griffin Davis was amazing. They found him after like 1,000 kids they looked at. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where with his name is Archie Yates, the little kid, and he's kind of the chubby one. He's gonna be the new Home Alone kid. He's not Kevin, but they're rebooting Home Alone, and he's gonna be the new kid. They found him.
I don't know how I feel about that, but
well, like I said, it's not a Kevin situation, so it's
right.
They found him immediately. It's like he came in, boom, done. And in fact, Taika would say that he would, when he got low, he would watch Archie Yates' audition tape just to make him feel good, because the kid is like super confident, super funny, super smooth, super cute.
Yeah, he is wonderful, and I love his relationship with the girl. That actress, Thomasin.
Yeah, Thomasin McKenzie.
Yeah, she was in a movie a couple of years ago called Leave No Trace. That was with Ben Foster. She's incredible in that movie. I highly urge you to check it out. It's a movie about a guy who is suffering from PTSD very, very hard. He's an Iraq war vet. And his daughter, played by Thomasin McKenzie, and him, they wander the country. They can't pin roots because he starts to freak out. He starts to have anxiety attacks if he stays at one place too long. And so she basically goes around with him. He's schooling her, and they live in the forest for a while until they're found. And it's a really good story, a really good movie, and great performances from both of them. So I highly recommend that. It's called Leave No Trace. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. You could probably stream it.
And she was found because her family is friends with Taika. He's known her since she was born, practically. And she's perfect, too, because what you're looking for is someone who's cool and beautiful and strong that this little kid is going to fall in love with.
Yeah.
And you almost want a superhero idolized version of this girl, because everything has to be, I can't believe he would ever do anything against her, and that's how it ends up working that out, because it's true, because she's so good, she's so strong-willed, and she can play a little evil at times. It was real nice.
Yeah.
And I did not put her in the recast list because I thought she might be a little too young, but Natalie Portman would have done a good job.
Yeah, she would have.
So,
she would have done a good job.
Well, I could see that.
Well, let's get into some recasting. So we'll start off with Taika Waititi playing Adolf, and I'm just going to call him Adolf because this is not Adolf Hitler. It's Adolf. It's JoJo's version of Adolf Hitler, and that's why he doesn't understand everything that is going on. Like, it's interesting to see how he shows up. When he first starts off, he's wearing different outfits. He's wearing that mustard-colored outfit that everyone saw him in and was on all the posters. And then, through time, he goes to that gray version of his outfit, and he actually has the blood where his brains were blown out.
Yeah.
But
such a great image. This really subtle use, but it's really good.
And I like how he is such a... he is like a little 10-year-old boy. He's such a shit. Like, there's that one scene where he's upset with JoJo, and as he's walking by, he like kicks him and then like knocks stuff off the table, and like a little 10-year-old kid upset would do, throwing a tantrum.
Right.
Yeah, doesn't get his way, he throws a little tantrum.
And Taiki plays this at 11. Which is good because they asked him if he did any research, and he said, no, why would I? His quote, he's a fucking cunt. He's playing Adolf Hitler because he feels having a half Jewish, half Maori playing Adolf Hitler would be the biggest insult to him.
Yep.
He's playing him like he's a Warner Brothers cartoon.
Guest first. Gary, Who do you have playing Adolf?
It was sort of obvious to me when I thought about it, but I wound up picking two people. I'm going to go with my first choice. He's Jewish as well. He's an English actor, and he is known for being weird and off the wall and perfect for this role, and that would be Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. His Borat this year may get him an Oscar. I don't know if it will, but it may at least get him nominated.
I prefer the second one to the first one. I think the second one's a better movie.
Yeah, because the first one's all jokes. The second one actually has a plot.
And he was great in that Aaron Sorkin movie this year, too.
Yeah, I really, really dug him in that movie. I think that movie got a bum rap from a lot of people. I really enjoyed Charles.
I really loved it, too, yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really well done.
My backup choice, if you don't mind, was Bill Hader.
Oh, Bill Hader would be good.
Oh, Bill Hader would have been great. That's really good. They're both great, but yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah, Bill Hader's hilarious. I think the Chicago 7 movie, what happens when movies get released on Netflix, we've talked about this, how it's got about a week and a half worth of buzz and then it just disappears.
Yeah, there's nothing to be done about it if there's no theaters to play it in, but I understand that. I think that's a movie... The people that saw it didn't get the message of it because it's not a movie about the bads versus the goods or anything like that, like oppression versus... It's a movie about a group of people in war with itself. It reminded me heavily of discussion of Bernie Sanders versus more mainstream Democrats. I got that idea out of the movie. And that fight that's still happening today. It started in the 60s. How radical should we be? Or should we try to get into the mainstream and win people's minds over that constant war? We're still in that today. Moderate Democrats versus radical Democrats.
The Democrats have always had this problem, and it's not a bug, it's a feature. But it's a problem, is that Democrats are so diverse of ideas and in varying degrees of the left that it's hard for things to even get done because unlike the Republicans, which are mostly, and not always, but mostly in lockstep with each other, they're a homogenized one block voting situation where they all agree and they all disagree on the same things. Democrats, it's all over the board, so it's hard to even get them together on their own stuff.
Exactly.
So, Alan, who do you have playing Der Fuhrer?
Like Carrie, I had two people, but there's one that's going to win this one easily. I'll tell you the one that I didn't pick first, and that was Gene Wilder.
Oh, I love Gene Wilder.
Just the idea of Gene Wilder playing Adolf Hitler, first off, I don't know how that works, how it comes out of my mouth, but I could see, because he's kind of a Willy Wonka. He's an imaginary guy to JoJo. He sets him up on a pedestal. The reality is quite different. But I think I'm going to go with the one that I'm most happy with, and that's Tim Curry.
Yes, I could see
Tim
that.
Curry could play this part in his younger years. Yes, he would eat this up and ask for second. He would have been great at it.
Just get a little Dr. Frankenfurter in there, and
yeah, really.
Well, I went with all 80s actors for mine. The one I picked is the one I think does my favorite Adolf Hitler of all time, and that's Mel Brooks. Yes, it's on the nose. I think Taiki is even doing kind of an homage to some of the things that Mel Brooks did.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
But Mel Brooks in this would have killed, just playing the Adolf part. And I think he plays the best, dumbest Hitler. So,
yeah.
And now we're going to go in a weird order, because this is the order that I got. Someone's agents have rearranged this, because I don't know. Rebel Wilson as Fräulein Rahm is next. She's the leader of the League of German Girls. And from what I understand, they didn't really give her much of a script. She just went in and just said things, which is very funny because she's basically in charge of the women, and they don't care what the women do, because the women are just there to make sure that when their husbands come back from the war, they're there to mate.
She had like 18 children or something like that.
She said that. She goes, I have given the body to the... Yes. And I love that when she was just handing out guns at the end. She's just handing out guns. If you see someone who's not like you, shoot them.
Yep.
So who do you have playing Fräulein Rahm?
She didn't have a lot of screen time in the movie, but when she was on screen, she was amped up all the way. And I was trying to find somebody that was sort of comparative to that. And I went with somebody that's currently on SNL, and that's an actress called Aidy Bryant.
Oh, sure.
Oh, I love Aidy Bryant. She's great. Yeah, cool. I love that. That's awesome. She would be wonderful in that part.
She does a great Ted Cruz.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, if you can do a Ted Cruz on TV, you can do a Nazi. That's easy.
Pretty much. Yep. Rafael Cruz doing it live, living his life in Cancun.
Right.
Alan, who do you have?
I have Madeline Kahn.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah, of course.
I have Madeline Kahn. Yeah. What else can be said? She's one of the greatest comedic actresses who's ever lived. Every time you see her, flames. She's one of my favorites. So yeah, Madeline Kahn.
It's a Mel Brooks theme, but this is my last Mel Brooks alumni. You went with Madeline Kahn. I went with Cloris Leachman.
There you go. Yeah.
She just recently passed. She was like 98. Good for her. Always funny, even when she was playing things well into her 90s. Yeah. She's Fräulein Blucher in Young Frankenstein.
Oh, Blucher.
Yeah. So now, like I said, this is a weird order. Now we have Stephen Merchant as Captain Herman Dirtz. He's a Gestapo agent bureaucrat. He's just kind of a petty bureaucrat. I guess he's a big, tall blonde, so like, hey, let's make him a Nazi. A very funny guy. I liked his character because it was very much hey, I like this kid. This kid's got it. He's like really like a PR agent.
Yeah, he was great.
This kid's got moxie.
Yep. So who do you have playing Captain Herman Dirtz?
I was trying to find somebody that was almost as tall as Stephen Merchant, but that's pretty impossible to do. Somebody else that was British, and somebody that everybody has seen a lot recently. I went with Paul Bettany.
Chicken Dinner.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, that was mine too. Yep.
Winner Chicken Dinner.
Yep, he's great. We never get to see Paul Bettany do... Well, we see him do a little comedy in A Knight's Tale, which is a really underrated movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
He's definitely doing comedy in WandaVision.
Yeah, I really... And as that just concluded as we're recording this, I really, really enjoyed that whole show.
Yeah,
I think Bettany does some really stellar work, as well as Elizabeth Olsen. It enriches the Marvel Universe in an interesting way in that it's character first.
Yes, exactly.
And because it's character first, the show resonates a lot more than if it was just people thrusting hands and shooting beams out of them, although that does happen.
It does happen. I am not jaded. I am not on the hate train for this. I really loved WandaVision. I loved the way everything was set up. Everybody's like, I hated the first couple episodes. I'm like, I loved them. I loved sitcoms growing up. And it was just setting up the entire series of what she was doing. I don't think it would have worked without that.
I find it funny that they told you exactly what the show was going to be. It's going to be her talking about sitcoms, processing her grief.
Yep. And people are like, no, I don't like that.
Well, no, it's exactly. Where's the X-Men? Where's this? Where's that? It's like, is this where they're going to introduce the Fantastic Four? It's like, no, that's not what this is about, which is why it's on Disney+.
This mix between television and movies is going to make the Marvel Cinematic Universe so much better, because there's going to be shows that we're going to spend serious time with these characters. We spent serious time with Scarlet Witch, who, let's be fair, in the films, she's just a plot point. Things happen to her, but she loses everyone. And the fact that Marvel said, hey, let's circle back on this character. This character is full of grief and pain, and they center that, and they make it entertaining. You look down the road and we look at the full arc of all these shows and movies, how they're going to play out. I think WandaVision may be the best thing the Marvel Universe has ever done.
They set up great new characters. They were able to pull in tertiary characters from the MCU and give them featured roles in this show. They can do so much with the TV series that they can't do in a 2-hour movie when they're having to cover 15 different superheroes, you know?
When was the last time the Marvel Universe put out a 2-hour movie?
Well, 3 hours.
Yeah,
but still,
exactly. But yeah, this was I thought it was fantastic. I did have a problem with Paul Bettany's hair in the 70s, 80s, and 90s because they gave him long hair. I always think of him as a short hair guy.
Well, maybe Wanda's into long-haired dudes.
I guess so. For my Captain Dirts, I went into the William Atherton Hall of Fame to find one of the biggest assholes I could, and in fact, I went with William Atherton to do so because I think his Ghostbusters, William Atherton, would have been perfect as a Nazi. It's all bureaucracy. That's all this is. It's not about being loyal because even he's saying a couple things about how some of the loyalties is stupid. I just wish there was more fanaticism. He just he doesn't care what they believe. He just wants them to believe it because they need to have bodies to win the war.
Yep, meat for the grinder.
Yep. So just cannon fodder. And so I think William Atherton would have done a great job.
I think one of the funniest lines or funniest scenes in this movie, which is very Mel Brooks-ish, was when every time somebody would walk in the room, the Heil Hitler thing, they have to say it to everybody.
It's
so funny.
They did it 31 times. That whole scene was 31 times because it reminds me of in Spies Like Us when they introduce all the doctors.
Yeah, doctor.
It was showing how stupid all these protocols that the Nazis lived with. And it's just all the goose stepping and all the Heils and when do you do a full Heil, when do you do a little half Heil, you know. Yep. It's ridiculous because it was all pomp and circumstance to disguise the fact that they were evil shits.
Yep.
Well, now we get to Sam Rockwell's Captain Klenzendorf, and Sam Rockwell is always amazing. He's always great. I think he's perfect for everything he does. I really like Sam a lot, and I really liked him in this because I felt he was, like I said earlier, I felt like he was a German and not a Nazi. I think he was a German who got caught up because he's loyal to his country into the war. Then he finds out, oh, this is not about what they told us it was about. It's really about ethnic cleansing. This is bullshit. But what am I going to do? And I think,
real quick, that scene where JoJo's describing Jews to him and the way that he responds to him is like, man, they got their hooks into you. You don't even know yet, but I'm not going to dissuade you of this. Yeah, whatever. That whole scene, the way that Rockwell plays it is pretty brilliant.
Yeah, because he's been beaten down by the bureaucracy. He got injured. He lost an eye. And so now he has to be an instructor. Well, JoJo throws that grenade and hits that tree and blows himself up. And now he gets demoted again. So he's a fantastic soldier and a shitty bureaucrat. And so he's just kind of fed up. He's broken. He just wants to have a life with Alfie, his assistant, because even when he gets mad at him, he apologizes. It was really cute when he was like, German shepherds, and like, no, not actual German shepherds, the dogs. And then he's like, no, I'm sorry. No, you're doing great. You're doing really well. I'm so sorry.
I love you, baby.
And then, of course, him dressing up at the end and then being a real shit to make sure that JoJo lives. Because they're killing all the Nazis.
That was a very selfless moment for him.
Absolutely. It was him going back to him being a hero. He was a hero before. There was that middle part where Adolf was fucking everything up, and now last thing he can do is be a hero. So who do you have playing Sam Rockwell's Captain Klenzendorf?
Like you just mentioned, it's very hard to replace Sam Rockwell. I went with one of my favorite character actors, one of my favorite comedic actors right now. He just started a new television series. I'm going to go with Alan Tudyk.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
Oh, he'd play a good Nazi, too, because he's got the look.
Yeah, and it'd be very believable, too.
Yeah. Also, he was in 42, where he played that horrible racist Chapman.
That's right.
And he can do all that stuff. He said he got physically sick having to say the N-word all day long. But I think he'd be that kind of guy, exactly what we're talking about. I love that one. That's a good one.
I mean, you have to have somebody who can play a droid. He could play a pirate. And he can play a hillbilly that accidentally kills people.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget he's the chicken in Moana.
That's right. They paid so much money for him to just make chicken noises.
Yep. That's the only thing. I thought he had a voice in that. Nope, he's just doing the chicken. He's just the chicken. And I think he's just something in the new Raya Disney movie where he's just a weird voice that doesn't, he's not a starring voice or anything. He's just like
started watching, he has a new series called Resident Alien.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great.
I haven't seen it yet, but he plays a real jerk in that show, I hear.
Yeah, he's an alien who wants to kill everybody to destroy the planet. but he starts to like feel empathy at times, and there's a lot of funny moments in this show.
Cool.
Alan, who do you have?
I have Mark Hamill.
Whoa.
Oh, sure.
I have Mark Hamill, and I'm talking like after Return of the Jedi. People don't know that. Oh, well, I guess people do know. They should know. I mean, the voice of the Joker. He has a very comedic side to him that I don't think we got to see. I don't think we got to have fun with and see in movies like we deserve to. Luke Skywalker is such an iconic role for the man that nobody would cast him in anything else, anything along those lines. And I feel like he wasn't given that opportunity to stretch those actor muscles in some really substantial and interesting parts, because Star Wars kind of, in its way, it ruined that for him. And,
he got typecast for sure.
Yeah, he found other success in other areas, but when you see him in The Last Jedi, and it's a remarkable performance, it makes me think, God, I really wish we had gotten to see Mark Hamill grow as an actor and do really interesting parts. And I think if Star Wars came out in 87 instead of 77 and the whole thing was pushed ahead 10 years, we might have had casting directors, casting agents who might have been able to see that potential. But at the time, he was so typecast and so locked in that nobody would see him as anything else. So I think Mark Hamill would have been a really interesting person playing that part.
We talked about Mark Hamill on Broadway doing Amadeus, and that they didn't hire him to be Amadeus in the movie because they didn't want Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And imagine how his career would have gone if he had played Amadeus in that movie.
A lot of other films that he could have made that would have been very interesting. It's not such a problem now, but back then, Christopher Reeve suffered the same problem. Yeah. He had to really go in another direction. He loved playing Superman, but that's a burden to carry that part with you everywhere. He did a movie called Death Trap, which Christopher Reeve is amazing in that movie. He is incredibly great. Other than film fans, people seem to have forgotten it, which sucks. He's hilarious in that movie. I really wish that Mark Hamill had been able to stretch those actor muscles a little bit and play different parts, and they would have given that opportunity. So that's my cast.
Rockwell said that he was inspired. Well, first he started looking at like Christoph Waltz and Ray Fiennes and all these Germans from other Nazi movies, but then he realized that that's not what this is. And so he took inspiration from Walter Matthau and the person I cast, Bill Murray. I think 1983 Bill Murray would have been perfect for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
Just think about it. Instead of it going to a youth Nazi camp, it's Meatballs.
Right.
Which I don't think a lot of people have seen. It's just you and me, Alan.
I've seen it. We've seen Meatballs. It's one of those where
it's a stupid movie.
It's not so good now.
Oh, no, it's definitely not. No. You got 28-year-old guidance counselors hitting on 14-year-old camp kids. That's just wrong. But
yeah, just wrong a little bit.
Yeah, a lot.
You could I can see your Stripes era Bill Murray playing his role.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, now we finally get to Scarlett Johansson, who's really I want to say is not necessarily the star. I think that's the young gentleman playing JoJo. Of all the adults, I think she's the star of this movie. She's definitely the anchor of it as Rosie, the mom who is secretly an anti-Nazi. She's Antifa before Antifa was a thing. Who do you have playing ScarJo's Rosie?
ScarJo, as you said, was so amazing in this role. She was so beautiful. Everything about her was perfect. And I was trying to find a young actress that is really starting to take her stride now. I went with Samara Weaving.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. That would have been great. She's wonderful. Everything I've seen her in, I've really enjoyed. I just saw Mayhem a couple weeks ago. That movie was a blast. She's great. No, it's fun. The movie's it's done by Joe Lynch, and the movie stars Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving, where they work in this office. Actually, she doesn't work in the office, but he does, and it's a cutthroat office, and then this virus comes into the system where it amplifies all your anger. And
interesting.
And everybody catches it, and it's basically real corporate terrorism going on inside the building. It's pretty funny. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to watch that now. I haven't seen that yet, but yeah. Just her performance in like Guns Akimbo and then Ready or Not and then Bill and Ted even. She was great in that.
Absolutely. She's wonderful. Good cast.
Alan?
Man, this was the hard one of the rest of them. I got everybody else. You go, Craig, and maybe something will coalesce.
Well, I had 80s actors, and she's really more of an early 90s actor, but I went with Marissa Tomei. Because I think Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny, despite the fact she's playing older in My Cousin Vinny, which is ironic, she's very young in it. She has everything you're looking for. She's beautiful. She's funny. She is endearing. She is charming, but she's also tough. I think she's got all the qualities, because this also was not only was this about propaganda and how people can lose sight of other people's humanity, but this was also a love letter to single moms. Taika was really adamant about making his mother in this movie a strong, important person, and I think Scarlett Johansson brought all of that. I think Marissa Tomei, especially when she was right after her Oscar win, before she started doing all the stupid movies, then coming back doing rather good movies lately, would be perfect.
Yeah, she'd be wonderful. You cast her dead on at that moment. She would have been amazing. I don't have anybody. I can't think of anybody. Scarlett Johansson's so good in this movie. I don't have anybody.
That's all right, Ellen. You have taken the coward's way out, and we will allow that on this one.
No, I've had a long day. All right,
that's right.
I was able to get 8 out of 9 or however many. So
8 out of 9. You mean 8 out of 9? You mean 4 out of 5? That's okay.
Sure.
Let's not double it up. Oh, jeez. All right. Well, let's move into our double feature. And this can be any movie you feel would be a good companion with Jojo Rabbit. Could be another Nazi movie. It could be a Taika Waititi movie. It could be a movie about kids in tough situations. So we're going to give you a movie theater for the day. Carrie, you're going to watch Jojo Rabbit and what?
Okay, this is a great one. There's so many. You just mentioned all these different types of movies that you can go with it, but I have to stick with defeating Nazis and killing Hitler. I had to go with Inglourious Bastards.
Winner, chicken dinner. That's what I went as well. You can listen to that to our previous Nazis month and go to matineeheroes.com and look in the archives for that. Yeah, because if you want Hitler to die, that's the one you want to watch.
Just like this movie, there's touching moments, there's funny moments, there's everything. I think these movies are very stylistically close together.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
One is definitely action and guts and blood.
Yep.
And then the other one is comedy and sweet. So they're definitely in the same genre, but they're just the opposite coin.
Yep, I agree. I have 2. Sorry.
That's fine, because I have Inglourious Bastards, so really, we'll all have 3 at the end. So go ahead.
He's making it for a ScarJo now.
There you go.
Yeah, well, the 2 movies that I have one for tone and one for the story of what the movie is about. The one for tone is Blazing Saddles.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the movie that Mel Brooks would have made at some point. I think that if Mel Brooks said, I wanted to make a comedic answer to a movie like Schindler's List, Jojo Rabbit would be that movie. I mean, it's got Mel Brooks through the whole thing. It's funny, we haven't seen a lot of movies that feel like inspired from what Mel Brooks did in the 70s. And after Spaceballs, let's be honest, Spaceballs is, as a satire, it's just making fun of Star Wars. Movies like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, they were emulating genres, but they had a lot to say. Young Frankenstein is more silly than Blazing Saddles. It's a lot of fun, and it has a lot of fun with those kinds of movies. But Blazing Saddles is on fire, angry, but funny, and seriously satirical. And I think that this movie is a spiritual cousin to that film. My other double feature is more of a similar kind of plot. A child trying to navigate war and trying to grow out of childhood, and that's Empire of the Sun.
Also at matineeheroes.com.
I've never seen that film, actually.
Oh, okay. So it's Christian Bale's first movie.
Oh, okay.
He's amazing.
That doesn't help me.
It's a shame because I don't know if he's ever been as good as he was in Empire of the Sun, and he was 14 years old.
Better than Newsies?
Yeah. Empire of the Sun is a masterpiece. It's one of the Steven Spielberg films that they don't talk about as much as they should. John Malkovich is amazing in it. It's about a little boy stuck behind enemy lines in China when Japan invades in World War II. It's incredible. It's a Spielberg, the high John Williams scores, some epic moments and scenes. There's a sequence of a bombing sequence on the internment camp that Christian Bale is in that's jaw-droppingly great, especially when you realize that the explosions are real and they're not CGI.
I will put this on my to watch list. I trust your opinions, and I just never seen it for some reason. I don't know why.
It's one of those that kind of slipped by a lot of people. I screened it a couple of years ago at the Draft House. We had our movie Hullabaloo, and the movie Hullabaloo is when we would screen films that we would not tell the audience what they're seeing in advance. The way the audience reacted to that movie is one of those things I love doing that. I love sneaking movies onto people. It's a blast to see how people react. The people that came up to me afterwards saying, thank you for playing that. That was incredible. It is a Spielberg film for the ages. I think that it's one of the ones that people should talk about more, and it's wonderful. So, and I can't tell you whether or not I'm playing a triple feature or a double feature with Jojo Rabbit. It's one or the other, really. I mean, if you're going to go for a satirical night, you play Jojo Rabbit in Blazing Saddles. If you're going to go for a World War II, interesting Germany/Japan, both sides sort of the war thing, then you would play Empire of the Sun.
Carrie Gordon, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts, yeah. I appreciate you guys for having me on again. I appreciate being able to watch Jojo Rabbit again. This is my third time watching. I was able to see it in the theaters, and then I own the Blu-ray. This was a great opportunity for me to actually watch it with more of an eye to catch more things and performances and stuff like that. I appreciate that. It's just such a great movie. I'm a huge Taika fan. Everything that he does, everybody in this movie, performances were quality, top notch.
From top to bottom, including the kids. That's rare. Usually the kids are the weakest link.
Yeah, the kids were probably the best part of this whole movie.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I will never forget that. Little Archie Yates is just so, him and the glasses are what do it. He's got that perfect little fat kid face with the glasses. He's so cute and so sweet. He's such a sweet little British kid. It's funny.
He's Harry Potter if his step-parents loved him.
Yeah.
You know?
Gave him a few pieces of cake.
Yeah. Oh, he's so nice. He's such a sweet little kid. I even like it when he's talking about they've got these uniforms. They're paper-like. You know? Alan, any final thoughts?
I just adored this movie when I saw it for the first time at Fantastic Fest. I thought it was one of those really great films, and it was a blast to seeing it there and talking to the director and talking to Stephen Merchant too. He was there. It's wonderful, and it's a movie that even now, even though it's been out a couple of years, I think it struggles to be understood. I think it's misunderstood in a lot of ways. I think that people need to pay attention to nuance and really understand you can have a blanket judgment over a group of people. You can have an understanding of history. But the true history is in between the cracks. The true history of how things go and the different shades of the truth are really important to understand, and this is a movie that gets at that. I think this is a film that says that not everybody is the same. We're all programmed in some way by the forces around us, and to get to the intrinsic person that we are takes work, and sometimes people aren't willing to put in the work, and the ones who do are rewarded with wonderful relationships and wonderful friendships and in love, as you said, Carrie, in love.
Well, my final thought is two of them. One is this is our final Nazi month selection. It's been a great month of telling Nazis to go themselves. So it's always good to get that out. It's very cathartic to watch some of these movies. Some are difficult to watch. I mean, American History X was not easy to watch, but it's an important movie to watch.
Tough movie.
But it's more relevant now than it was when it came out. It's crazy. Always remember that, yeah, the world is full of dipshits and numbnuts like Nazis that run around and do stupid stuff, but that's a small chunk of the world. There's way more good people in the world than there are bad. Coming from someone like me who's usually pretty negative, I'm not saying they're smart. I'm just saying there's a lot nicer people in the world than the Nazis. So don't...
yeah. You're shattering all my preconceptions.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they're smart. I'm just saying most people are good. That's why it's important that when people start acting like Nazis, you've got to point them out and say, stop that shit. That's stupid. And then tell them to go themselves. My second one is to obviously thank Carrie for coming on. Always good to have you on. This is like your first non-Disney.
You know, I was going to say that in a weird way, this does feel like a Disney movie.
I was just thinking the same thing myself. It really does.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll have a new ride at the Disneyland then, at the Jojo Rabbit.
Just stop. I know where this is going. Just stop.
Hopefully it's like the Buzz Lightyear. Hopefully it's like Buzz Lightyear. You can actually shoot.
Oh, like the video game situation?
Yeah.
I was hoping it'd be more like Rise of Skywalker, where we spend a good 30 minutes recreating Jojo Rabbit's boot camp.
We have to toss grenades back and forth?
Yeah, no, we got to throw a knife at a tree and have it stick into your friend's leg. That was hilarious. And the way the kid looks around like, well, I didn't see that. That didn't happen. But Carrie, thank you so much. Make sure to listen to him at the MSR Cast and Metal Geeks. And of course, we will see you sometime in the near future when Comic Palooza comes back. I will be there. I've already got my tickets, got my hotel. I will be in town, Alan, so get yourself ready.
Cool. I'm going to be there if I can. I've had my shots, so hey.
Awesome. So you're saying a live Matinee Heroes is going to happen?
Sure.
Why not?
There you go.
It definitely, and possibly a cast-off, but we will see you very soon, Carrie, in person. I don't know if hugs are appropriate yet, because it'll still be elbow taps and waves from a distance all around.
I would love to tap your elbow, man.
Craig here, and I just wanted to thank you for downloading the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, think about becoming a matinee hero by going to matineeheroes.com and clicking the donate button. If you donate, we'll add you to our Hall of Heroes page and give you a shout out on the show. And hey, I understand if that's too much for you, could you please leave a review on iTunes? We'd really appreciate it. Next week on Matinee Heroes.
Slave. Barbarian. Warrior. Thief. Conan.
They said you'd come. A man of great strength. Conqueror. One who could crush the snakes of the earth.
Purveyors of their own deaths.
He's evil, a sorcerer who can summon demons.
Day of doom is here! What daring! What arrogance! I salute you.
Out of an age undreamed of comes the most incredible adventurer of all. The man they call Conan. The Barbarian. Coming to a theater near you from Universal Pictures.